Imagine this. You're sitting in a crowded auditorium at Utah Valley University. The energy is tense but electric. Charlie Kirk, one of the most polarizing conservative voices in America, is at the microphone. For years, he's been untouchable, a firebrand who thrived on controversy, calling out opponents, silencing critics, and commanding rooms with an iron grip. But tonight, something is different. Something is about to shatter the illusion of control forever. The lights dim, the crowd hushes, and in a single instant the room is ripped apart by the crack of a rifle shot. Charlie Kirk falls. The man who had built a reputation on never backing down suddenly lies motionless, a dark pool spreading across the stage floor. Chaos erupts. Screams. People rushing for the exits. The sound of metal chairs crashing to the ground. Someone shouts, "Shooter! Shooter!" And in that moment, every single person in that room realizes they are part of history. But what no one could have predicted was the bizarre twist that followed. A twist that would ignite conspiracy theories, shake the country's trust, and leave millions asking if someone knew this was going to happen before it even did. Charlie Kirk's rise to fame wasn't accidental. He had been underestimated his whole life. The kid who didn't go to college, who built Turning Point USA from nothing, who outtalked and outmaneuvered seasoned politicians on national television. People called him lucky, arrogant, even dangerous, but no one could deny he had power. He could turn a crowd with a sentence. He could crush a critic with a smirk. But power has a price. And for every rally he held, for every debate he won, somewhere out there someone was quietly building resentment. The kind of resentment that doesn't just fade. The kind that waits for the perfect moment to strike. Investigators pieced together a chilling timeline. The shot that killed Charlie Kirk came from a rooftop 500 feet away. A single, clean hit. This wasn't random. This was planned. Hours later, the FBI recovered a bolt-action rifle abandoned near a wooded area, along with footprints, a palm print, and even a forearm impression in the dirt. Signs that the shooter had been lying in wait. The message was clear. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. But here's where the story turns from tragic to downright surreal. The day after the shooting, as news of Charlie Kirk's death flooded every channel and social media feed, people discovered something strange on Amazon. A book. Not just any book, a book titled The Shooting of Charlie Kirk. A comprehensive account of the Utah Valley University attack, the aftermath, and America's response. And here's the part that sent chills down spines across America. The listing date on Amazon showed the book had been published the day before the shooting. A complete account of an event that supposedly hadn't even happened yet. Thousands of people screenshotted the page before it was taken down. Theories exploded online. Was this a sick prank? A prediction? A confession? Or something far more sinister? Amazon quickly issued a statement claiming it was a technical glitch, that the timestamp was wrong, that the book had actually been uploaded hours after the shooting. But for many, the damage was done. The author, a woman named Anastasia J Casey, became an overnight obsession. Who was she? How did she write a comprehensive account of the shooting so fast, complete with details that matched the official police report? And why had no one ever heard of her before? Investigators tracked Casey down, but what they found was bizarre. No clear online presence. No verified background. Some claimed her author photo was AI generated. Others insisted the book's language felt like it had been written by a machine. Was someone trying to profit off Kirk's death? Or was this a coded message, someone taunting investigators, letting them know this was just the beginning? And then came the real twist, the power shift that no one saw coming. Within 72 hours, hackers leaked an internal Amazon communication suggesting that the book was uploaded through an automated account tied to a foreign server. This wasn't just a random cash grab. This looked like a carefully orchestrated information operation. Suddenly, the narrative flipped. The powerful voices who had mocked critics as conspiracy theorists were now demanding answers. Politicians called for hearings. Cable news turned the story into a 24-hour cycle. And Charlie Kirk, in death, became a symbol not just of political division, but of a system that might be playing a much darker game behind the scenes. For Charlie's supporters, this was justice of a different kind. For years they believed he was targeted, censored, treated unfairly by the establishment. Now, in a way, they saw the tables turn, the establishment itself under the microscope, forced to answer how a book predicting a political assassination ended up on the biggest marketplace in the world before the body was even cold. The public demanded transparency. Investigators promised answers. But every answer only raised more questions. Why was there no security footage of the rooftop angle? Why had the shooter been able to disappear despite thousands of witnesses? And why did Casey's manuscript include chilling lines about the first shot that would change everything and America's coming reckoning? By the end of the first week, the country was split in two: those who believed it was a tragic coincidence, and those who were convinced that whoever killed Charlie Kirk wanted the world to know it had all been planned. The FBI doubled the reward to $100,000, released new surveillance video of a masked figure fleeing the scene, and warned the public that the suspect might strike again. The hunt became the largest manhunt since the Boston Marathon bombing. And just when it seemed like the story couldn't get any darker, a second book appeared. Same anonymous author. Same eerie timing. This one was titled The Next Shot, a warning to America. It wasn't just an account. It was a prediction, a chilling countdown. And the first line was simple, terrifying, and impossible to ignore. This time, you won't be able to stop it. The nation was on edge. For days, the mysterious book about Charlie Kirk's shooting dominated headlines. But when the second book appeared, The Next Shot, a warning to America, fear turned to panic. This wasn't just a retrospective. It was a countdown, a threat, a promise. The first page set the tone. This time, you won't be able to stop it. Law enforcement scrambled. Intelligence agencies went on high alert. And ordinary Americans asked themselves the same question. Who was Anastasia J Casey, and how did she know what was coming before it happened? Agents traced the upload of the second book to a proxy server in Eastern Europe. Within hours, a joint task force was assembled. Cybercrime units, counterterrorism experts, even foreign intelligence partners. They knew they weren't just hunting an author anymore. They were racing against a clock. Every line of that book was dissected, analyzed, fed into AI systems looking for patterns. And then they found it. Hidden in the text, embedded as the first letter of every third sentence, was a date. September 21st, 10 days away. The book wasn't just a warning, it was a schedule. The pressure mounted. Politicians demanded action. Universities canceled events. Crowds grew restless, convinced that another attack was coming. Cable news ran 24/7 coverage, counting down to what they called America's next nightmare. And in the middle of this chaos, a tip came in. A credible sighting of a figure matching the surveillance footage from Utah. Dark clothes, hat, sunglasses. Seen near a rural shooting range in Colorado. When SWAT arrived, they found fresh shell casings, footprints, and a single piece of paper tacked to a tree. For words written in bold black marker. You're getting warmer. The case took a darker turn. Whoever they were chasing wasn't running scared. They were taunting investigators. Playing with them. Leading them. Every move law enforcement made seemed to have been anticipated. Search warrants turned up empty. Surveillance teams lost their target. And then came the third message, not on a tree, not online, but mailed directly to the FBI field office. Inside was a USB drive. On it, a short video. A gloved hand holding up a newspaper, proving the date. A distorted voice saying one sentence. The next shot will be louder. For the public, fear turned into obsession. Online forums erupted with theories. Was this a lone vigilante striking back against political power? A coordinated foreign attack meant to destabilize the country? Or something deeper, something inside the system itself? What made it all worse was that every prediction so far had come true. Every detail in the first book had matched reality. And now, the second book was beginning to look less like fiction and more like a roadmap. Then came the breakthrough. A digital forensics team cracked part of the book's metadata. The author's profile was linked to an abandoned academic email account belonging to a former data scientist who had once worked on predictive behavior models for the Department of Defense. A whistleblower. Someone who had disappeared 3 years earlier after warning that certain AI programs could forecast acts of violence with terrifying accuracy. The pieces started to fit. Maybe these books weren't written after the fact. Maybe they were generated by a system designed to predict human behavior, a system someone had hijacked and turned into a weapon. But before investigators could confirm the lead, before they could track the server, a third file appeared online. Not a book this time, a live stream. The screen showed a grainy feed of a quiet suburban street at night. The camera slowly panned to a house. A single porch light was on, and then a caption appeared at the bottom of the screen. This is where it ends. The live stream sent shockwaves through the nation. Law enforcement swarmed the suburban neighborhood shown on the screen. Helicopters lit up the sky. Tactical teams moved in with rifles raised, expecting a standoff, expecting violence, expecting anything, but they didn't expect what they actually found. Inside the house was no armed gunman, no terrorist cell, no assassin. What they found was a single room filled with computers, cables, and servers humming quietly. And in the center, sitting calmly in a chair, was a man. No mask, no gun, just a flash drive in one hand and a copy of the first book in the other. His name was Dr. Elias Mercer, a former government scientist who had vanished from public life 3 years earlier. Mercer didn't resist arrest. In fact, he smiled when the agents put him in cuffs. "You're late," he said. What followed was one of the most shocking interrogations in FBI history. Mercer admitted to writing the books, but not in the way anyone expected. He hadn't predicted the shooting of Charlie Kirk. He claimed he had tried to stop it. According to Mercer, he had developed an AI program capable of predicting violent events by analyzing millions of data points, social media posts, purchase histories, travel patterns, even weather. The program had flagged Charlie Kirk as a likely target months before the Utah event. Mercer claimed he had contacted officials, tried to raise the alarm, and had been ignored. When the shooting happened exactly as predicted, he decided to go public, but in his own way. The books, Mercer said, were a message, a warning, a way to force the public and the government to confront what was coming. He insisted he wasn't a killer, just a messenger. But then came the detail that silenced the room. Mercer revealed that the program had predicted more attacks, not just on public figures, but on entire communities. He said the second book was meant to push authorities into action before the next prediction came true. Investigators were stunned. Some wanted to charge Mercer with terrorism. Others argued he might have just saved lives by exposing a secret too dangerous to keep hidden. But there was still one problem. If Mercer had predicted these events, then who had pulled the trigger? 2 weeks later, they got their answer. A break in the forensic evidence led them to a man named Keene, a former military contractor with a history of political extremism. Ballistics matched his rifle to the Utah shooting. Keene was cornered in a remote cabin and took his own life before he could be taken in. In his notes, investigators found pages of writings about becoming the spark that sets the fire and references to public speeches by Charlie Kirk. He had acted alone, but his attack had been exactly what Mercer's program had foreseen. For many, this was justice. Keene was gone. The threat was over. But Mercer's revelation had left the country with a haunting question. How much should we know about the future? And what do we do when we know something terrible is coming but can't stop it? In the weeks that followed, congressional hearings were held. The AI program was shut down. Mercer was quietly released, under surveillance, but free. And for a brief moment, the nation seemed to exhale. But some weren't satisfied. Some believed Mercer had held back information, that he knew more about what was coming next. And in one of his final interviews before disappearing again, Mercer looked straight into the camera and said, "You think this was about Charlie Kirk. You think it's over. But this was just the first prediction. The program never sleeps. And neither should you. Justice had been served. But the fear that someone somewhere might still be watching the future, that fear would never quite go away." And if you want to hear more stories like this, where truth is stranger, darker, and more shocking than fiction, make sure you subscribe to Behind Crime Scene, where we dig deep into the cases that keep you up at night.